Rain slammed down in sheets outside the old country house, drumming hard against the rooftop like it was trying to warn me. I stood there on the front porch, soaked to the bone, the cold biting through my dress. My birthday dress. My 24th birthday, to be exact. I should have turned around the moment I saw my mother's arms crossed through the stained glass window, her eyes like knives. But I'd clung to hope. I always did. The kind of desperate, naive hope only daughters still crave from parents who never really saw them. I knocked anyway. The door opened with a sharp creak, and there they were, my father, stone-faced in his weekend vest, and my mother behind him, stiff as ever. Her lips pressed so tight it looked like smiling might crack her face. "You've got some nerve showing up here," my father muttered. "No, happy birthday. No hug. Just ice. I just wanted to see everyone," I said, my voice trembling but steady. "I thought maybe, just maybe, we could share dinner. Like we used to when—" "Don't romanticize it, Evelyn," my mother snapped. "You chose to throw your life away. We told you. If you walked out that door with your pathetic dreams and your grandfather's old tools, you'd be out for good. She's still chasing that handyman fantasy," my father laughed dryly. "Fixing people's toilets and calling it purpose." I swallowed the sting, straightened my spine. "I didn't come to fight. It's my birthday." "And we're ashamed," he spat, stepping closer. "You bring shame to this family." Then it happened. The moment that burned itself into the deepest corners of my memory. My mother pointed at the door like I was a stray. "Get out. You're not welcome here." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I stood there for a long second, cold water dripping from my sleeves, my soul heavy, until a deep, gravelly voice sliced through the tension. "Then maybe," it said from the back of the hallway, "you should know the truth." All eyes turned. My grandfather. He stood with a cane in one hand, a trembling folder in the other. His silver hair was uncombed, his face drawn but burning with fire I hadn't seen in years. And when he walked forward, yes, walked, not limped, the silence was deafening. "You think you know shame?" he said, voice hard as iron. "You too would know the weight of it if it crushed you." "Dad, this is not the time." My mother started. "No," he cut in, raising his hand. "It's exactly the time. Because I raised Evelyn when you were too busy attending cocktail galas and board luncheons. I taught her what real work means. I watched her carry this family's name with more dignity than either of you have ever mustered." He handed me the folder. "Open it," he said. My fingers trembled as I flipped it open. Inside were yellowed photographs, a birth certificate with unfamiliar signatures, and a letter. Dated 2 decades ago. My breath caught. My heart pounded like it wanted to escape my chest. "You're not their shame, Evelyn," Grandpa said, his eyes softening as he placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're their salvation. But they've spent too long buried in ego to see it." The truth spilled into the room like a sudden fire. My father wasn't my biological father. And my mother. She'd hidden the fact that I was adopted not from strangers, but from her own sister. Her older sister, my birth mother, who had died suddenly, and whose daughter had been taken in quietly by a couple desperate to appear noble in society's eyes. I wasn't just a forgotten child. I was a secret they planned to discard the moment I stopped being useful. And in that moment, as the rain poured harder and the house filled with gasps and trembling silence, the entire room shifted. I wasn't the same girl who knocked on the door. And they weren't the untouchable gods I had once feared. The folder trembled in my hands, not from the cold anymore, but from something deeper. Rage, grief, confusion, blending into a pressure in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I blinked rapidly, trying to process what I'd just read. My real mother's name. Her handwriting. A photograph of her holding me, barely months old, smiling like the sun was hers. I looked up, and the whole room was silent. For once, my father didn't have something to mock. My mother looked like she'd seen a ghost. "You kept her a secret?" my grandfather asked again, his voice shaking with fury. "You told me you'd raise her like your own. Instead, you buried her past like it was trash and filled her head with shame." "Dad, that was decades ago," My mother whispered, clenching her arms around herself. We did what we thought was best. For who? He snapped. For you? Or for your spotless reputation? My father finally stepped forward, shaking his head. That woman, her mother, was reckless, irresponsible. You remember how she lived. Always jumping between cities, falling for deadbeat musicians. We didn't want Evelyn to grow up in that chaos. You mean you didn't want her to ruin your pristine image? My grandfather said, his voice low now, deadly calm. You took her in so you could control her, not love her. My chest tightened. So everything I was blamed for, being different, being stubborn, never fitting in, it wasn't because I failed you. It was because I wasn't yours to shape. The silence said everything. I stepped backward, clutching the folder to my chest like armor. I looked up to you, I whispered, staring at my mother. Even when you insulted my clothes, my dreams, even when you rolled your eyes every time I fixed something with my hands and called me a janitor's apprentice, I still wanted your approval. You were always ungrateful, my father muttered, always questioning everything. No, I said louder now. I was always surviving. My voice cracked, but I didn't let it break me. That little girl you raised as a prop, as a charity case, she's gone. I'm done begging you to see me. And for what it's worth, today was the last time I ever knock on that door. I turned toward the stairs, my boots leaving wet prints across the wooden floor. Wait, Grandpa said gently. You're not leaving alone. I turned. He was already putting on his coat, struggling slightly with his sleeves, but refusing help. You think I'm staying under this roof another night after this? I should have left years ago. But I was waiting for this moment. For you. My mother's face twisted in disbelief. You'd leave your own daughter's home for her? Grandpa turned to her, eyes heavy with disappointment. I raised Evelyn with more love than you ever let me show you. My heart cracked in two. I hadn't expected it, his loyalty, his warmth. In my darkest hour, he chose me, not because I was a victim, but because I was finally free. Come on, he said, gesturing to the door. Let's go make this birthday one to remember. And just like that, we stepped out into the rain, not as two outcasts, but as family. We drove in silence for a while. The only sound was the rain on the roof and the occasional sigh from Grandpa. He didn't ask if I was okay. He knew better. Instead, he reached over and turned on the old heater in his beat-up truck. You know, he said eventually, your mom, your real mom, she wasn't perfect. But she was kind. Wild, yes. But she had a light in her that drew people in. You've got that same light, Evelyn. Then why'd they hide her from me? I whispered. Why did they act like I was something to be ashamed of? He gripped the wheel tighter. Because people don't like what they can't control. And you're your mother's daughter in every good way. I looked out the window, the town lights passing by like fading stars. What was she like? I asked. He smiled softly. She used to dance in the kitchen barefoot, fix her own car, sing lullabies even when no one was listening. She was brave in a world that hated brave women. I closed my eyes and held on to that image. A version of myself I'd never known was possible until now. We pulled into his cottage just outside town. Nothing fancy, but it smelled like pine wood and warmth and everything I'd missed in my childhood. On the table were 2 wrapped boxes. Been waiting all day to give you those, Grandpa said. You knew I'd come? I asked. He shrugged, chuckling. I had a feeling. Stubbornness runs in the family. I opened them one by one. The first was a set of old carpenter's tools, polished, restored, shining like gold. They were your mom's, he said. She wanted you to have them one day. The second box held something even more shocking, a thick leather-bound notebook. Blue ink scribbled across every page. Her journal. I ran my fingers over the cover. I think, Grandpa said gently, it's time you remembered who you are. And for the first time in years, I did. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. I sat on the floor of Grandpa's study, curled beneath a wool blanket, the journal resting in my lap like a heartbeat from the past. Each page felt like her voice, like I could hear her laugh between the lines. She wrote about me, about how she named me Evelyn because it meant life. How scared she'd been, but how desperately she wanted me to grow up free.
Brave.
Unbroken. If she ever reads this, one page read, I want her to know she was never a mistake. She was my beginning. My reason. I clutched the book to my chest and let the tears fall freely. Not from sadness, but from a strange, unfamiliar warmth that wrapped around my soul like a memory I didn't know I'd missed. In those pages, I saw the woman I was meant to be. Not a mistake. Not a burden.
Not shame.
But legacy. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the windows, painting the walls gold. Grandpa was already in the kitchen, frying eggs, humming an old tune under his breath. He handed me a mug of coffee before I could say a word. You read it, huh? He asked, a smile tugging at his lips. I nodded, gripping the mug. She loved me. She really loved me. He leaned against the counter, eyes wet but proud.
She did.
And you've got that same fire. You just forgot how to let it burn. I looked down at my hands, rough from work, from building, fixing, creating. I want to do something with all of this, I said softly. Not just survive. Not anymore. I want to build something. Something good. For her. For me. Grandpa grinned. Then, let's start today. Over the next few weeks, something changed in me. I started working with Grandpa at his old repair shop again. The same shop I'd swept floors in as a kid, where I'd learned to change a carburetor before I even had a driver's license. But now, I wasn't just fixing leaky pipes or changing tires. I was sketching plans, drawing blueprints, designing something bigger. I poured every ounce of pain, strength, and truth into a vision. A community space where young women could learn trades.
Carpentry.
Mechanics. Plumbing. Welding. Real, tangible skills. For every girl who was told she wasn't enough. For every daughter whose dreams had been belittled and buried under family shame. I called it the Life Workshop. Grandpa backed me all the way. He even mortgaged his truck to help get tools and materials. And others followed. The retired schoolteacher down the road offered to teach math. A welder who used to work with my mom showed up one afternoon with 3 boxes of scrap metal and said, "Heard about what you're doing. I'm in." It wasn't easy. We worked late nights, fixed things by candlelight when power got cut, and we ate a lot of peanut butter sandwiches. But it was real. It was mine. And it was working. Until one morning, I saw them again. My parents. I was outside, laying bricks with my hands when their car pulled up.
Sleek. Silver.
Too clean for this dusty road. They stepped out like they were walking into court, stiff, rehearsed, guarded. I didn't flinch. I didn't stand. I just kept stacking bricks. "Evelyn," my mother said, arms crossed. "We heard about this project of yours." My father cleared his throat. "We were told you've been using the family name in the city registry. Evelyn Langford Foundation for Women in Trades. Is that true?" I looked up, slow and calm.
Yes.
"It's my legal name, after all." "That name means something in this town," he snapped. "It does," I said, wiping sweat from my brow. "And I'm giving it a new meaning." They both stared at me, like I'd just slapped them. "This isn't what we raised you for," my mother said, voice trembling. "You're aligning yourself with mechanics and blue-collar workers." "And yet here I am," I replied, "building something that actually helps people." They stood in silence, unsure of what to say. I let the silence stretch until it got uncomfortable. Then I stood, dusted off my jeans, and walked up to them. "You had a daughter who would have carried your name with pride. But you were too busy being embarrassed by what made her strong." I stepped back. "You don't need to support this. You just need to get out of the way." As they turned to leave, Grandpa walked up behind me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Think they'll ever see it?" I asked. He smiled gently. "Maybe. But by then, it won't matter." Because I was done living for their approval. I had my own light now, and it was only getting brighter. The moment everything changed didn't come with trumpets or a standing ovation. It came with a cracked window, a stubborn generator, and a little girl named Lily, who watched me solder a broken chair leg like it was magic. She was 8, scrappy, and quiet. Her mom worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford proper daycare, so Lily would tag along and sit in the corner while we worked. One day, she tugged on my sleeve. "Miss Evelyn," she whispered, "do girls fix stuff too?" I knelt in front of her, handed her the wrench, and said, "Girls fix everything." She grinned with a gap-toothed smile that knocked the air right out of me. That same week, Lily helped us repaint the front sign of the Life Workshop in her crooked handwriting. And that photo, Lily smiling in paint-splattered overalls, somehow made it onto a local journalist's desk. The story hit the local paper first. Former disowned daughter builds skills center for forgotten girls. The headline stung, but the truth rang louder. By the end of the month, the article had gone viral, shared by influencers, picked up by city blogs, even mentioned on a morning talk show. But what none of them saw was how many hands it took behind the scenes. Grandpa staying late to check power lines. The elderly welder teaching teen girls how to spark steel with trembling hands. The kids sweeping sawdust after every class like it was gold dust. One morning, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the lot. A woman in her 50s stepped out, pearls, pressed blazer, quiet power in her eyes. "Are you Evelyn Langford?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. "I am." She smiled faintly. "My name is Nadine Wallace. I'm part of a private foundation that funds initiatives that actually matter. May I come in?" I gave her the full tour, nothing polished, nothing staged. Just real people, real sweat, and a chalkboard calendar filled with names and hope. At the end of the walkthrough, she turned to me and said, "This is what the world should be funding." Within weeks, we had grant money, equipment, a new roof, electricity that didn't cut out when the toaster was on. But more than that, recognition. The City Council awarded the Life Workshop a Community Impact Citation. We were featured in a televised segment that aired just before the evening news. And I'll never forget the moment the camera panned across the room, across Grandpa's proud face, and the reporter asked me what made me start all this. I didn't blink. I was thrown out of my own home on my birthday.
Told I brought shame.
But the truth is, shame doesn't come from where you start. It comes from forgetting who you are. And I never forgot. That night, as I sat on the porch beside Grandpa, a familiar car rolled up. My parents stepped out slowly, as if the earth beneath them had shifted, and they no longer knew where they belonged. My father cleared his throat. "We saw the news." I didn't move. "I figured you did." My mother looked more fragile than ever. "Your name, it's everywhere now." "I didn't do this for the name," I said quietly. "I did this for the girls who didn't get one." Silence. Then, Grandpa stood, walked to them, and placed the original folder, the one from that night, into their hands. "Read it," he said. "Every word. You owe her that much." They stood under the porch light, flipping through pages they'd avoided for decades. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. Finally, my father spoke. Not with anger. Not with pride. With regret. "I'm sorry." It was quiet. Awkward. Half-formed. But it was real. I nodded slowly. "I'm not the girl who came to your door that night. I'm stronger now. And I forgive you, but I don't need you to approve of me anymore." Tears welled in my mother's eyes. She stepped forward, reached into her bag, and handed me something. A photograph. My birth mother. Younger.
Happier.
Holding me in her arms on a beach I didn't remember.
"We kept this," she said.
"All these years. We didn't know why." I took the photo gently, and for the first time, I saw them as people. Flawed. Imperfect. Lost in their own ways. I didn't invite them in. Not yet. But I didn't turn them away either. Because growth wasn't about vengeance. It was about knowing when to open the door, even if you never stepped through it. Weeks passed. The workshop was thriving. Laughter, grit, sawdust, and second chances filled the air. One morning, I got a call from a lawyer. He said, "Are you Evelyn Langford? I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Your biological mother left a trust." It was never claimed. My heart stopped. A trust. He continued. She set aside a piece of land in your name. With a note. Give her roots. She'll know what to build. I drove there that afternoon. An open, overgrown field with wildflowers and a crumbling shed. But to me it was sacred ground. That night I made a decision. Months later, we opened the Lily Center, named after the little girl who reminded me what it meant to be seen. A second branch of the Life Workshop.
Bigger.
Brighter. Built on the land my mother left me. The opening ceremony drew a huge crowd, including Lily and her mom, city officials, and my parents. They stood at the back. Quiet. Watching. I walked to the mic, heart pounding. I was thrown away by the people who should have protected me. But I was raised by kindness. By truth. And today, I stand here because I chose not to stay broken.
Then I looked at Grandpa.
He was beaming. Teary-eyed. This isn't about revenge, I said. It's about legacy. And as the crowd clapped, I caught my parents clapping too. Not out of pride, but out of respect. They finally saw me, not as a shame, but as a light they never knew they needed.